Sorry about that, everybody. Let's get started. So sexual assault in the military context. I just want to talk to you guys about the military side of things because that's what I feel I can give a little bit of perspective into. I'm a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps right now. I am originally from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. I just graduated from the Naval Academy in May of 2020. While at the Naval Academy, I was the president of It's On Us for 2 years. I was also former regional advisor to the military service academies for a year. So I kind of helped coordinate between the Naval Academy and its counterparts in the Air Force Academy, West Point, the Coast Guard Academy, and the Merchant Marine Academy. My start in advocacy actually came in 2015 in Obergefell v. Hodges. I was in DC and arguing with people from the Westboro Baptist Church on the steps of the Supreme Court. Productive, not so much, but I like to think I learned a lot from that and since then. And I really got into the fight against sexual assault and harassment after just having too many friends and become survivors of something that has no place in our society, let alone our military. I would never have thought that I would become as involved as I am today, but I really feel that all of us have responsibility and the duty to each other and to all survivors to do everything that we can to permanently stamp out sexual assault. I feel especially obligated to do so, recognizing that the military as an institution has historically been and continues to be a place where sexual assault and harassment have thrived and really cultivated over the years. From my view, the reorganization piece and the recognition piece has really been one of the hardest steps in the process to create a better culture surrounding sexual violence in the military. The diagnosis is really the first step in fixing this. And so in my talk, I have two really key points that I want you guys to walk away with. One is to develop an understanding of the history and current situation of sexual violence in the military. And two is to enable It's On Us as student leaders to be able to include past and present military personnel in on-campus activities. So the first one is going to be a little bit of me talking at you, and I'm sorry about that, but I want to again say that if you guys have any questions or anything at all, please send it in the chat, and I'll get to it as soon as I can take a look at that. And then when we get to the second learning objective, I'm going to have us break out into some breakout rooms, and you guys are actually going to do an activity that you're going to model basically a student council for an It's On Us council and come up with an idea of something on your own. So we'll get to that. But first of all, so history of the present illness, where we're at today with sexual assault in the military and where it's come from. So sexual violence has always been an issue in the military. And I would start off by saying, 1948, when women were first permanently integrated into the military. But I think we all understand here that sexual assault is not an issue that begins or ends with just women. It's always been an issue from the days of, barbaric raping and pillaging to sexual violence towards men that has happened for centuries. And has not really been recognized. And it even resurges in stuff like that resurges in modern wars too. Military scandals with sexual assault and harassment have always been present, and they've kind of gotten more attention in the last 30 years. And one of the first ones that brought that to light in the military was the tailhook scandal. And so I have a picture there of a U.S. naval officer, a military officer wearing a shirt that says "Women are property," and so that's taken from the 1991 tailhook scandal. And in that scandal, it's basically an association of Navy and Marine Corps pilots, and these individuals came together, and for years, stuff probably went overlooked. Stuff probably went that nobody said anything about, and then finally, a young female pilot in '91 told her chain of command about the sexual assault and harassment that was happening at this convention. And there were officers who were groping women, who were having prostitutes at a professional convention, and it just really was not acceptable at all. And so she sent up her chain of command, and unfortunately, slaps on the wrist were given to individuals, but no formal punishment was given from this scandal, and no systemic change was brought from it either. And so that and many other scandals actually over the years from the 90s and the early 2000s kind of brought this conversation to light that there is an issue in the military. However, it wasn't really until 2011 to 2013 that people began to get serious, creating legislation, and with the right political climate as well. I think we can all recognize that stuff began to actually happen. And so since 2012, the military has seen a wave of much needed response to the issue. And to a large degree, it's only succeeded in uncovering how desperate the services have been for real cultural change. Even still, the process is creating a better climate regarding sexual assault in the military, and continues to, but sexual assault rate of service members from 2016 to 2018 jumped by 40%. So we can tell we're not all the way there yet. For women, that same rate from 2016 to 2018 jumped over 50%, and is the highest that it's been since 2006 at the height of the Iraq War. So, and also with this, there's two things that come with that too. And one is there's a very large sentiment of not reporting sexual assault in the military. And a lot of that comes because of retaliation. In the military, 76.1% of survivors do not report the crime. And that's as of 2018. And the same study said that 64% of women who reported sexual assault faced retaliation. And 2/3 of those retaliation reports came from the reporter's own chain of command. So think about this. These are the people who are the supervisors, who are in charge of them, who are in charge of entire units, entire military units, who they're supposed to trust with their well-being on a battlefield. And they can hardly trust them with their well-being in their personal lives. And so it creates an enormous problem, and one that still needs to be addressed properly. And the issue continues with veterans too. So military sexual trauma, or MST, affects hundreds of thousands of veterans every year from their traumatic experiences of assault and harassment while serving our country. In 2015 alone, 1.3 million outpatient visits to the VA hospital system were for MST-related care. Veterans with MST are more than twice as likely to experience homelessness after their service. And justice has improved from slaps on the wrist from the tailhook scandal, but in 2017, hardly a third of all sexual assault cases with evidence ended in action against a sexual assault charge. So I just threw a lot of numbers at you guys, and being a Marine, I personally do a lot better with pictures than numbers. I personally like crayons better than seeing numbers on a paper. So I'm going to give you this graph instead. So I want you guys to first notice these little black bars that are on each diamond. And so those are confidence intervals. And what those say to me is that the first step in this process is being done. It's being done slowly. I mean, you guys can see it's over from 2004 to 2018. But these bars are going from between 30,000 to 40,000, and they don't know the confidence interval sometime or some number in between that 10,000 number to all the way down to about 2,000 that it is in fiscal year 18. So we are getting more accurate numbers. We are getting better sense of what the problem is. And we're able to treat it better because we do have those numbers, and we do have the data to tell us a little bit more about what's going on in the military. The second thing that I want to point out to you guys is that from 04 to 18, the number of reports of sexual assault cases has gone up 500%. That's enormous, and I would be shocked if I was just looking at that number and thinking, holy crap, the number of sexual assaults has gone up by 5 times. But again, I also want to say that's also a win, because we don't really know how much of that is that sexual assault cases have actually increased, or how much of that is that people are just more comfortable reporting it to their superiors. And the more comfortable that people get reporting it, the better it is for us to be able to look at numbers and actually see if the efforts to educate people, if the efforts to instate better response programs are actually working. And by the somewhat trend that you guys can see in the diamonds up there, there is a decrease in what we think are the sexual assault cases. But again, it varies so much that we can't really know for sure. And so as the data gets better, we can more accurately address the problem, and we can know better what works too. And I would say it's overall a downward trend, and you guys certainly can notice the fiscal year 18. There was a little bit of an increase from fiscal year 16, and as a personal opinion, it's the political climate and the climate around the nation can also influence that, and I think probably influences that on the curtails of the Commander-in-Chief's narrative as well. So I want to stop right there and just check in with everybody and see how everybody's doing with that. Do I have any questions? I'll go chat right here. So as you guys can see, it's a very pertinent issue in the military, and something that a lot of commanders have addressed. Even our last Secretary of Defense, General Mattis, or Secretary Mattis, addressed this issue and said that it is the most important issue facing the United States military. Yes, to the answers about my email, I'll send out my email at the end, and I'll also send out this presentation and my notes so that you guys can have that as well. So our leadership is finally starting to realize that this is such an important issue that we are not able to be an efficient force because sexual assault is too prevalent in our units that it degrades the trust that people have in their superiors. And we see this in the news lately with Vanessa. I mean, it comes to light in these terrible circumstances, and circumstances that make people think, why would my command ever not trust somebody who says something about, I don't feel comfortable in the workplace? Why should anybody not feel comfortable in their workplace in the first place? Especially these individuals who volunteer to serve their country. So I'm gonna leave that. You guys can feel free to continue to ask questions there. And I'm gonna move on to the next part of my talk. And I wanna talk about what you guys can do to help. And how we as student leaders can, even at civilian institutions, can use what we know and use our ability to organize to include the military. So how can you make a difference? We all know that there's sexual assault in the military, and it's a big conversation in the military, but even at civilian institutions, there's a lot of military personnel, active and past, in civilian institutions. Veterans make up about 6% of all undergrad students as of about 2017, and it continues to increase as the military pushes higher education as a bigger priority for its members. And so if it's 6%, think about it. If you're in a class of about 20 people, you're probably going to have at least one veteran in your class, veteran or active duty. And if you're in a larger lecture hall, you might even have more. ROTC units, ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps units, are active at nearly every college in the United States. And if they're not active at your college, if you know that there's not one active at your college, what they likely do is they'll have it at a nearby college, and then they'll include the people from your institution in their unit. And so really everybody, all of you student leaders who are on this call, you likely have access to some ROTC unit from your college. And even more than that, active duty service members attend college actively as um, people who are pursuing a higher rank or just looking to get that education, as there are a lot of opportunities to go to places of higher learning within the military. In addition to that, when I was when I was regional advisor for the military service academies, I had the honor to talk to the programs at West Point Air Force, Coast Guard, and the Merchant Marine Academy, and they all have growing sexual harassment and assault prevention, education, and response programs. So any of the largely East Coast Colorado schools, those are also schools that you guys can include in your activities. So what I want to do now, I want to do a breakout activity. So I think we have about 50 people who are live here now on the screen. So what I want you guys to do is break out into different sessions. And so here's the situation. We're going to put, math in public. We're going to put about 7 of you in each room. And what you are going to do is you guys are your own school's intercouncil, or whatever you call your It's On Us council. And what you're going to do is plan an event for Veterans Day of 2020. I don't, if you want to include stuff that has to do with COVID, you can. If you want to just pretend that the world is as is, then you can also do that. And you should be able to see my screen right here. That's it's Veterans Day 2020. Your groups are It's On Us Leadership Circle. I want you guys to plan an event in your groups that includes military members at your institutions and celebrates veterans while raising awareness about sexual assault in the military. And the one thing that I want to emphasize this so that we don't treat this issue the wrong way, because I know that it can backfire, and it can certainly it can isolate some people. It can make people feel like they're not welcome to be part of the conversation. And so I want you guys to think positively. We don't want to cause people to think that we are using Veterans Day to scathe the military for its flaws, because the military certainly has flaws, but we are working to make it better, and we're working to make this country better. And so use this as an opportunity, use this Veterans Day event as an opportunity to thank veterans for their service, and also pave a better road for future veterans. So make this so that, try to paint it in a light that you're making it so that we can improve the military, not just insult or say bad things about it. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing here. I'll bring the screen back up so that everybody can see it if they'd like. And I see I got a couple more questions here. I will I'll address those and look at those while you guys are in these breakout rooms. So I'm going to do about 8 people per room. All right. And I'm going to be checking in with you guys at each room. But I want you guys to talk about this for the next, we'll say, 12 minutes. So I'm on the East Coast right here. So we'll say at 12:42, I'll bring everybody back. And if we need more time than that, I'll be checking and make sure that people who need more time can have that more time. But I'm going to create these breakout rooms randomly so that you guys can start talking. If you can still hear me, you should have gotten an invitation to join a breakout room, and you can just click on accept or whatever that might look like to join that breakout room. All right, so as we're bringing everybody back, I believe we got everybody back from the breakout rooms. So now I want to give you guys a chance to share a little bit about what your breakout room talked about and the ideas that you came up with. The ideas that I heard while I was going around sounded really cool and really interesting, and stuff that you guys can really put into practice, whether it's Veterans Day or any other time that you might want to put on an event that includes the military in your um, community, in your college, wherever you may be working. So can we start with, you guys know your breakout room numbers. Can we start with breakout room number 1?
Hi. Yes, so we were in breakout room 1, and we were kind of just throwing out different ideas of what the event would look like. All of us pretty much work within the community as either organizers or things like that. So we were first trying to figure out something that can maybe entice people to even come out to the event. I think Tom had some really good themes that we could think of for the event. Is kind of honoring veterans by protecting soldiers. And some main key components of the event would be like healing, honor, respect, and celebration. And so we kind of thought our event would be kind of like a take on Take Back the Night, kind of having a veterans event on campus at night where you have different rooms or different areas that have different things, maybe a survivor room for the healing, to where if survivors feel like they would like to share their stories, they are, or maybe where they can do it silently by posting something on the wall or in the area, maybe having some education by like showing a movie in another area, having like popcorn or pizza to kind of like try to get people to come in, and just like a celebration as well as for all the veterans who have served.
That's awesome. If anybody else would like to chime in from that group or from other groups who has comments about that, feel free to shoot a chat to me and I'll unmute you. All right, I am not getting any more comments about that, so I'm going to move on to Sarah, who asked to share from group 4.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So we had a similar idea as we talked about Take Back the Night, because that is a very useful structure, and I know at my school it's outdoors and it's really nice. Because there's tabling for information, there's survivor tables, and then also later on in the night there's the sharing circle, which I think is really impactful to have those personal stories. I think it hits home a little more for people, in hopefully positive ways, and encouraging to keep working for this cause. But I also discussed in our group that I think there's an overwhelming culture of sexual violence, and I think that it feeds on fear, silence, invalidation, and other things. And I feel like unless we address those foundation pieces of this culture first, then I don't think there's going to be a lot of substantial change, because I feel like there's a lot of great ideas and a lot of great intentions, but just not a lot of follow through on those main things for any gender reporting these, experiences, because I think it's even worse for males to report than women, just because of the stigma and all the things against them reporting. So I think that's just the foundation I think needs to be attacked before further things are, pushed forward, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, and those are some awesome ideas. Yeah, again, like the stuff that can absolutely be implemented in an actual event, and in your actual events, plural, the stuff that you do on a daily basis towards stuff that doesn't have to do with the military. So thank you for sharing, Sarah, and for everybody from group, let's see, group 4. So now we have Alexis from group 5. I'm gonna unmute you so that you can give us a little bit about what your group talked about.
Okay, so we talked about having 2 walls with names of veterans, and have one wall specifically for, thanking them for their service and celebrating them and all of that. And then have a separate wall that has names of survivors of sexual violence in the military. And so we can bring awareness around that, and then maybe having like statistics. And then we all kind of agreed that oftentimes survivors don't want to put their name out there. So we had thought about maybe doing like tick marks or having them just put like a daisy or something like that if they're more comfortable doing that. And then we had also, I've never seen it, but I think pretty much everybody else in the group had seen The Invisible War, which is a documentary about sexual violence in the military. So then I was thinking, and I'm like actually planning on doing this. So then I was thinking of doing like a screening of that and then still having the walls in like the lobby or something like that, just to bring awareness around sexual violence, but then still celebrate everybody that has served and given to our country.
That's awesome, Alexis, and a really cool idea with the screening of The Invisible War, and I think that's that sounds like an awesome group that or an awesome idea that you can also put into practice. I got a comment from Gina, and I'm gonna put her or unmute her so that she can say whatever it is that she would like to say about your idea.
Well, I was in the same group with Alexis, and she came up with that idea. It was a great idea. But I wanted to piggyback on what she said, and also the gal who spoke just before her about we really wanted to find a way to emphasize on how to report, because a lot of people don't report because they don't know the right channels to go through or what jurisdiction their report falls into. If they're a civilian assaulted by a military member, if they're in the military, if it happened on base or off base. So just to piggyback on that, we need to find a way to raise awareness so that people know where to go when they need to report.
Yeah, I totally agree, and so that's something that is a really good thing to work with if you're at a college, to work with your ROTC unit on. If you go to anybody in that ROTC unit, everybody knows their chain of command, and everybody is able to tell you the information that you want, or can direct you to somebody who has the information that you want. And you can even probably get a representative there. There's a lot of very active people in ROTC units and people who care about this stuff. And so if you reach out and say, hey, I'm looking to do this. I'm looking to do this idea. I'm looking to have a screening of The Invisible War. And I would love it if you guys showed up. If you guys would like to watch it with us, we'd love to have you there to maybe answer any questions, or every unit would have some place that they would go if they for sexual assault prevention and response. And every unit has that contact, and all you have to do is reach out and ask for it. And they I'm sure would be more than happy to give it to you. And if not, ask somebody else. Come to me. Come to ask a different unit. And that's definitely a great addition to have that knowledge of where to go if this happens to you. All branches. So Gina asked me if all branches have sexual assault prevention and response, and so yes, the answer is all branches have that. It's called different things at different levels and in different branches. So for the example, the Army has something called SHARP, which is the same thing, different acronym. And so every unit, every branch, every level has some degree of, if you would like to report this, if you would like help, this is the person to go to. And so, yeah, no, great question. But every unit and every branch has that SAPR. All right, so next we have, all right, I'm gonna have trouble pronouncing it, Sun Yang from Group 2.
Oh, hey, I really liked everyone's ideas. My group's idea was to do this large carnival event, something fun for the kids, and then mental health services for the spouses and family members, and have family members and former vets speak out on their stories of being personally affected, maybe in terms of contemplating suicide, or maybe they had someone close to them contemplate suicide in the military, or deal with sexual assault. Maybe have a little memorial for a couple fallen veterans who were personally affected by suicide or suicide and sexual assault, like Vanessa Gullen, and just teach her how to report section, as well as having some veterans anonymously share their stories and maybe have other veterans read their story out loud in case the survivor will be too scared to come forward, and emphasizing it that men are more likely to be assaulted than falsely accused, because too many times false accusations is just a guy's excuse to just not care or be dismissive of it, which unfortunately really hurts men in terms of coming forward. And once men come forward, then I believe it would be seen more as a human issue. So doing all our diligent work to have at least 2 male survivors speak out would be a high priority, as well as teaching us how to report civilian versus military, or military on military. Like you said, it's very different for each branch: Army, Marine, lieutenant, officer. And yeah, and we could have little kids fill out thank you cards for the vets too. So it's like positive and acknowledging the negative too.
Yeah, those are awesome ideas. And I really like what you said about trying not to just to paint it like it is, and really get at the heart of the issue that we're addressing. So I also want to say I got a couple good questions and comments. So Rose Berkman said that it would be a good idea to have folks come from the VA or from like I said, from those ROTC units, as a way to make sure that it doesn't come from or it doesn't come off as an attack from the outside when we put on an event like this, that it comes off as that we are genuinely coming together with the military and trying to stamp out something that doesn't belong in regular society, doesn't belong in a civilian college just as much as it does not belong in the military. So thanks for that. Thanks for that comment, Rosa. That was really good. So I am going to right now. I think we got comments from every group. So I'm going to take back over again, and I'm going to answer some questions that you guys had for me. Specifically, let's see. I got a question from Cynthia Carosella. I'm very sorry if I mispronounce you guys' names. What reactions did you receive from fellow service members when you address rape issues in the military? That's an awesome question, Cynthia, and it varies. I think we all recognize that not everybody is immediately perceptive to what we have to say. And there's always going to be people who don't like what we have to say, who might not buy in as easily as others. And it's the same for the military. There's certainly people who might say that's not our business, or that's not something that we should be taking time to talk about. I will say though, speaking for the majority of people in the military, especially the younger generation, it is thought of as a serious issue, and people do take it seriously. People buy in very, very easily because they recognize that it's an issue that could happen to the people that they love, or even to themselves. And that's unfortunately the reality of it, that it becomes a very personal thing when you have a military that's as connected and kind of like a family, a very large family. And so in general, people buy into it, but there's always going to be those bad eggs, or not bad eggs, people who are just more difficult to talk to, I would say. So another great question by Lauren Kofsky. Why are sexual assault cases not able to be just brought to the police? if a woman who is in the military is assaulted by a fellow service member, can she tell the police? And so that gets into the UCMJ, and the military has its own separate structure for law, and so it's called the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and so that's really why that it can't be brought to the police. It can be brought to the police, and if there's an emergency, then like every military member can absolutely call 911. But as far as reporting it goes, because the military members fall under this separate law that is, I would say, more strict, more in a military sense. It's I guess that's all I guess I need to explain it for now. But so yeah, the long story short, it's certainly military members can call the police if they are in a situation that they need help immediately in an emergency. But as far as reporting goes, there's separate routes to report it in the military through the SAPR office. SAPR stands for Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office, that I was mentioning earlier, and with SHARP in the Army. So those are the routes that military members use to report sexual assault and harassment and other UCMJ violations. So I hope that answered that question. If not, please continue to send me notes. Let's see, I got one more, maybe two more. Will this be emailed out? Yes. I'm going to try to work with It's On Us staff to make sure that this entire thing gets sent out to anybody who registered. Yeah, so those are all the questions that I got for now. If I miss any questions, please send them to me, and I'll either get back to you before the end of my talk, or I'll email you individually and make sure that your question is answered. Does anybody else have any questions? If you do, please type them in the bar so that I can answer them. I just got one from Lana. Do military personnel need to call UCMJ to report domestic violence as well? So yes, and again, I wanted to make sure. It's like if you were to call urgent care, the thing that they say at the start of the message is, if you are in a medical emergency, hang up and call 911. It's the same thing for the SAPR office. If you are in a domestic violence emergency, if there's any threat or anything that the police need to deal with, one, there's base police that you're automatically redirected to if somebody calls 911. And two, if it's not on a base, certainly call 911. Do not call anything else. So if anybody in the military asks you that question, I would say that's, I hope I am not confusing everybody by saying that, but it's, so call 911 if you need it, but if you're reporting or dealing with the response, then contact the SAPR office. I got another question from Sarah. Yeah, so Sarah, I completely agree with you. The lack of swift and accessible justice and follow through causes survivors to be less likely to come forward. I totally agree with that. And it's certainly no difference in the military than it is in the civilian world. With it just takes a long time for these cases to be heard. It takes a long time. There's evidence and lawyers and just all this bureaucratic stuff that happens that makes it so that a lot of survivors say it's not worth the trouble of pursuing. And yeah, I agree with you. And the military has tried to make some steps in that, as has civilian law, and so that's something that we certainly need to continue to work on, is that accessibility and probably the knowledge of what happens after you do report a SAPR case as well. And so on that note, I actually want to add, so just very basic level, how it works in the military is when somebody reports a sexual assault or harassment case, one of the first questions that's asked is whether they would like to make it unrestricted or restricted. And so that basically unrestricted is chain of command knows, and so it's not just strictly a private thing that happens between you and the SAPR office. At that point, it's an investigation that the command starts and looks into with everybody that's involved, and basically a court case is started. A restricted report is whoever reports it, it only goes as far as they would like it to go, and the chain of command is not involved. So their superiors, their bosses are not involved, and it is retained to whatever information that individual would like to give the SAPR office, and that's more for the SAPR office and that individual, the survivor, to come in contact and to work through it on their own. All right. I don't have any other questions. So with that, I want to thank you guys for joining on today. I hope I was able to answer your questions. I hope I was able to give you some insight about where we are at as a military on sexual assault. And I want to say I've come here for informational reasons. I want to give you guys information. I don't mean to make any political stances by being here, and certainly not on the behalf of the Department of Defense as a whole. But the United States Navy and Marine Corps, the entire military is absolutely and very seriously working on stamping out this problem, just the same as a lot of colleges and institutions are. And I think we're stronger together. I think we're stronger when we come together and address these issues together, because we're both civilian colleges and the military are a lot of dealing with the same age group and dealing with the same issue. And we might treat it in different ways. There might be different details, but at the root issue, and at root, what we're trying to do is to get rid of this cancer from our society. And so I appreciate everything that you guys do. It's absolutely an honor for me to speak to you guys today. And again, I'm going to make sure that all this gets sent out, and that all this information is available to you. I'll make sure that my email and contact information is also available to you guys. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. I am always happy to answer your questions or find somebody who knows a little bit more. And if you have any events or something like that, I'd love to see it too. I'd love for you to send me an email and say, hey, we actually did this a Veterans Day thing that we came up with when we were doing this brainstorming. So, all right, I'll stay on for a little bit, but thank you so much for everything that you guys do, and have a great day. Please stay safe.
Thanks so much, Sam. As Sam said, we will be sending this out. It will be available on the It's On Us website in the coming weeks. We will also follow up with folks and make sure that if you want to get in touch with Sam, that you have a way of doing so. Sam, again, thank you so much for your great presentation. I'm sure everybody learned a ton. I definitely did. And I appreciate you continuing all of your support of It's On Us and this really important work.
Always.
All right. Thanks, everybody.